It's 5:15. I'd like to call this regular meeting to order. Will you please recite the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we'll move into transition program to tour the facility. So I don't know who's in charge from you. Yeah. Hey, you want to take over?
Sure.
Can I just interject? I have a question. Who was in this space when it was the alternative? When it was Jamestown North? Just for the sake of context, you know, I was saying this to Heidi earlier. I still have a hard time, you know, thinking about what it was, you know, imagining that it looks like this now, because I know what it looked like in the past, and I know that some just don't have that same context. But, you know, this is really such a nice space, and especially when you consider what it looked like in the past. Not that it didn't look nice, but it didn't. It wasn't
where
this.
we came from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So tour first or program first?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay. I'll do the program first.
Okay.
All right. The transition program has been part of Jamestown Public Schools for, I want to say, about 20 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. When it first started, there was just a part-time, well, actually, first of all, a teacher and students would go from the high school to the house to do activities and then back to the high school. Then I believe they had a part-time person that stayed there after a few years. And then the year before I started, they got a full-time teacher and students got to be there full-time. So this is my 18th year, which is kind of crazy. But the program provides an educational choice for special needs students to work on transition skills. It's run through Jamestown High School. We follow Jamestown Public Schools calendar. We follow their rules. Mr. Gaylor is over as their principal, and so it's kind of like part of the high school. Yet it's nice that we're removed from the building, because we really want these kids to know that this is their next step. Some students graduate and go to college, some go to a trade school, some get a job, and some can come here to continue skill work. In order to be a student here, you have to have all your credits in order to graduate. This program doesn't give credits, so the students have to be graduation ready when they come. They need to be between the ages of 18 and 21, and they need to be receiving services through an IEP. So the IEP team meets and decides if this is an appropriate place for them or not, and then that's how it's decided who comes here. They do get to go through the graduation ceremony with their peers. They just receive an unsigned diploma, and then when they're done here, they're presented with a signed final one. We have 3 core areas that we really work on: vocational, daily living, and rec and leisure. So the vocational has looked a little bit different this year. So we've been really fortunate to get out in the community when we could. The work experience is either here within the house or out in the community. This year we're using some sites. We have UJ, Johnny B's, some elementary schools, and in the past we've also used building blocks and track, the grocery stores. So it really just depends on the year. One thing that we stress is that we're not training for a specific job. So while we kind of try to think about what the students like, it's not about putting them in the job that they really want to have. We work on how do you dress for work? How do you tell your boss you're going to be out? How do you what happens if you're late? What steps do you have to take to make that okay? And when they go to work, they do go with a job coach, who this year is Julie. Daily living. We work on independent living skills, a lot of cooking, a lot of household cleaning, laundry, shopping, and money management. So we make our own lunches here 4 days a week. So the students have to help plan the meal, make the grocery list. We've done a lot of online grocery orders this year, which is another really good skill anyway. So that's been nice. And we have just kind of started now getting out into the stores. Rec and leisure, we focus on making good choice when selecting your leisure activities. I'll speak to the past again. We try to get to any community activities that we can. Sometimes that's a little tough because most things are in the evening and weekends, but when we can get there, we try to. We work on hobbies, games, fitness, and volunteer work. We have started, last year we started a program with Triumph Incorporated, which is an adult provider in town. And a couple times a month, we get together with their clients and do some sort of an activity. I think the next one coming up is they're in charge of planning it, but I think it's going to be maybe cleaning parks, going to the park and cleaning up trash and that kind of thing. Last time it was here and we played bingo, so it can be work, it can be just a fun game. They invited us to their St. Patrick's Day party, so all sorts of neat stuff. One of our big programs here is called the Magic Bean. We have a coffee business. We've been doing it for about 7 or 8 years, I think, and it kind of grows a little bit each year. We make and deliver coffee, smoothies, Italian sodas, hot chocolate. We have a few different things on the menu. One day each week, we go to a school. We actually serve all the schools in Jamestown Public Schools at this point. In years past, we have done a couple businesses as well. This year, we don't have that going. We have an online ordering system, so if they just go to our school district webpage, there's an online order there. And then we get the orders. The students have to figure out who gets which drinks, so we have to put all the cups out, lay the orders next to them. I have a student putting the stickers on lids. We always have somebody pouring and measuring and pouring milk. We've got one person in charge of the blenders and the blended drinks, and then another student helping with the machine. And I have 4 students this year, so they're all kept very, very busy during that time. We typically do about 15 to 20 a day, which is about, it's just a little bit more than our machine likes. Usually it kind of cuts down when we have 2 or 3 left. So. One of the other programs we have that we started a few years ago is called Recipe for Learning. And that one just kind of came about because I had a lot of students at that time and they all need work in the kitchen, but you can only eat so much, so many times, so much. So we started making meals, and we do about 4 a month, and it's always something that we can freeze, and then we take it to the counselors in the district, and they distribute it to whoever they think it needs to be. It's a great way for our students to know that they can give back to this community that's been very good for them. I don't know if you saw the vans in the parking lot. We do have 2 vans that we use for our program. So typically in the morning, 9 o'clock, we get going on coffees. Then I'll take some students to deliver coffee, and Julie will start job sites with students. And it just kind of, she's kind of in and out all day taking students to the jobs. So the vans get a lot of use, and we are very grateful for that.
Amy, do you want to talk about what you did before that? Before the vans?
Oh, yeah. Well, I drove them. I had a pair at the time that also agreed to drive. So, yeah, we were having kids in our own cars, and it just, you know, we agreed to it, but we didn't want to use it too much, so it really limited us going out. Yeah, the van, getting the 1 was awesome, and 2, it just like opened up a lot of opportunities for us. And we also do try to use the transit bus a little bit, and before kids graduate, we try to get them in a taxi at least once or twice, just to make sure that they've had experience with that, been exposed to that. Okay, any questions, or should we start the tour? All right.
What is the enrollment this year?
I started out with 6. I had 1 move and 1 graduated early, so I'm down to 4 right now. I'm looking at probably 7 or 8 next year, which is kind of a average size for us. We've been as high as 11, and that's kind of tough.
Okay.
We've been as low as 2, and that also is a little.
So what's the limiting factor then? 11 would be too much.
Just having the staff to do one-on-one with them. It kind of.
Staffing versus
And they couldn't have their own work experience site. We had to really double up there, because they had to each have a job coach, and we just didn't have enough hours in the day to do everybody else.
So what is the transition like after this? I mean, do they have to secure employment, A, B, C, D?
No, most of our students end up with some sort of a job. That's not through us though. When they leave here, we make sure that if it's appropriate, they have a case open with developmental disabilities and with voc rehab. And so from there, that kind of turns into what their next step is. A lot of students are provided with day services through one of the adult agencies in town, and that would be Alpha or Triumph or Community Options. That's all. And some of them have moved into apartments on their own. Some of them still live at home. Some of them live at home in their own apartments. It's up to the family at that point what they do.
Amy, for those that maybe didn't see the little house that you were in before, maybe share some of the what it was like and some of the limitations, like the kitchen, the laundry, those kinds of things.
Yeah, we were in the little bluish gray house over by Lincoln Elementary. And it served us well. We loved the house, but it really was very limiting. The kitchen was very small and very closed off. And that is one of my favorite things about here, is that at the other house, most of the time I needed to keep an eye on the students in the kitchen. Even if they're doing their own thing, I need to be able to see them. And that we just couldn't do that. So I would have to be very close to them in the kitchen, and then it just disrupts what they're doing. If we're not right next to them, they'll do their thing. But if we're standing there, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of looking to see if they're doing it right. So that's been one of my favorite things about this, is that I can sit here with a student and work, and somebody else is cooking, and I can see them, but I'm not interacting with them. So I think that is one of my favorite things here. And I think we've really seen a lot of growth in the kitchen skills because of that.
Well, this room here is bigger than the entire house.
It is, yeah.
That's what I thought.
It is, yes. Yeah. And, other little things like parking the problems have just gone away. Before it was parking on the street, did the van get plowed in, yeah. Yep. This
The other
one we
nice thing
ran.
is when our van breaks down, they have an auto tech shop.
And we may have used them a time or twice already. Yeah. Okay, so this room, I don't know if you guys, how many of you said you had been here before, but right between those two doors and straight up, there was a movable wall, kind of an accordion wall. And so I believe they used both sides for classroom. So we moved a wall. We're going to be getting some more windows here. So there'll be a window right behind Jason there over the sink. That window will become a door. And we'll get a window there. And those doors will be gone, and we'll have a window there. So lots of natural light. I think it will just make a wonderful home feel to the place. And that's been the other really big thing that I've liked. We kind of wondered with the space, is it going to feel like a classroom? Is it going to feel like an apartment? And I think it's really worked out well. I think it does feel like a home. And the windows will just, I think, enhance that. So these are the last of the cupboards that we got. And I don't think that Bob had his students have them in more than 10 minutes and we were filling them up. The storage is wonderful. With this extra added storage, we're able to put all of our coffee supplies in here. Before that, we were using storage in the back room. The back room has a purpose that will come a little bit later, so we weren't going to be having that anymore. So it's kind of nice that we were able to fit things in here. So that side of the room is part of phase 2 of the plan for the transition program. The idea is that we'll put a commercial kitchen or an inspectable kitchen back in there. There's some talk, I think they'll be expanding it out this way a little bit and take the back part of that room. So that will become usable for us as well as perhaps some other programs in the district. There will be an outside entrance, so other groups can use it, without traipsing through here. Our goal is to, in some way, shape, and form, have a little bit of a cafe over there. We've kicked around a lot of ideas. Will it be grab-and-go lunch? Will there be seating? Who is that exactly is it for? And I think those are all things that we still need to figure out. If you have ideas, let me know. We're kind of open to that right now and exploring a lot of different options. So I don't know, Bob, you want to open the door? There's not much in there to see. It's just
There's stuff.
Yeah, there's
Windows
stuff.
in there, I think.
There's stuff.
It's a large unfinished area.
Yeah.
So your future is, kitchen you said in there, and then this will be the transition.
This will still be our kitchen,
So back
our
here
home
when you
kitchen.
walked in,
That will
like
be
there were-
commercial.
So what's it, do we know the time frame on this yet?
There were like doorways.
I think that's kind of up to them.
They both them separate.
Oh, wow, okay.
I didn't mean to be like this.
No, no.
Right. They did ELA over on.
Okay, so this space over here is what we kind of call a rec room. And it's
That used to be its own
more
classroom, right?
for school activities.
Yeah, there was like.
And just to give students their own spot. So we watch the news in here, we maybe play games in here. We don't do a lot of paper and pencil type work, but when we do, this is sort of a facility that we utilize for that. This room kind of had to change mid-project. This was going to be the laundry room and therapy room. So they tore the carpet out, anticipating putting the vinyl in there. And then they found out that plumbing wouldn't work here. It would be way more expensive here than over there. So this has become, it's going to be our bedroom and kind of storage, but there is no flooring in here right now. And that's just because it changed midstream. Okay? And the bedroom idea is just, practice making the bed, have a dresser with, folding clothes for inside it, that kind of thing.
Who's the laundry?
We do our own from here in the house, a lot of rights and that kind of thing. We do usually try to bring in a few items at some point, so then do a little bit of sorting and washing. I haven't just let the kids bring it. I can wash them. That's a whole new business. Okay, this is the 2 bathrooms in the mechanical room. Those haven't been changed at all. We do utilize them a little bit differently. We have a green and a red paper on the door just to get them to feel like it's more of a home bathroom. You don't go in if somebody else is in there. So they're really good about flipping it around and understanding that they can't go in if it's red. Over here we have laundry, and it is laundry and also our therapy room. In the past, we've never had water access where our therapy was, so this is a big treat. So students that have maybe physical therapy, some occupational therapy, although some of that happens in the other room as well. If there are students that need to be freshened and need to be laying down to do it, we have this, and like I said, the water is very nice to have. This will also have another big window, as will the office across the hall.
It's not an office / therapy room /
Everything.
yeah, storage.
This area right here, right now, we have a student that just needs their own space, their place to chill, so that's what this is. Originally this, and it still might be, is going to be for equipment. If we have a student in a wheelchair, we may also have a Hoyer lift, and we may have a standard, and a lot of other equipment, so that kind of would just tuck in here. And then this room, we took a wall out to make it one larger room. There's storage around behind there, and this is my office, but it's also where we can hold IEPs if they're not really large. We also can use that as a space for voc rehab and DD to meet with the students. So.
The window in that room is going to go on the south side. Also.
Yes, yes. And the windows are here. I think it's just a matter of weather and time. Any questions?
For those that were, I had referenced this earlier, but for those that were never in this space before, this used to be like a separate classroom. You would walk in here. There were two doorways, but both of these, this was open. This wall wasn't here, and these were two distinct. They operated as two distinct classrooms, but it was one big open space. And so all of our, we would do math on this side, and ELA and social studies over here. Use the separate classroom sometimes. It's a much better use of that space, especially integrating the alternative program into the high school. But yeah, like I said, for me, it's very surprising every time I'm in here to see the difference. Because you're used to seeing a space in one, and it looked one way, and now it definitely feels like a living area.
There also used to be like a window, a big window in that window,
yeah, right.
or in that wall that looked into the other one. And then right here behind Bob was a roll-up metal door with a kind of a counter over there.
So are there any improvements that you'd like to see that you haven't talked about?
Well, yes.
What's your big one?
Well, we're excited about the commercial kitchen and some of the things that will afford us. I know that there's also been talk of some sort of a garage, which would be really, really nice just to get the vans out from being outside all year. Plus, when we have students in wheelchairs, we can get them in and out of the van, but sometimes it takes a while. And if we had the indoor space to do that, that would be fabulous. Bob, did you want to kind of talk about what you and the kids have done?
Well, I guess, Amy's touched on a lot of it. I guess, first of all, it's been a cooperation between a lot of parties, between Mr. Gaylor and Mr. Heiner and Mr. Leck and the patience of Amy, but as far as what the building trades have done last year we came in, and last year it was more of the tear down remodel part of it. Like, Amy talked about, there was a wall in that office and there was that big metal, and then this big window came out and built this wall and took these out, so on and so forth. So that was a lot of the major tear down renovation was done. And then obviously, last year at this time we weren't meeting face to face, so that kind of threw a wrinkle in a lot of things, I think. But then we came back this fall, and fortunately, we didn't have anything to do with some of the flooring and the ceiling and the lighting and stuff, but we got the opportunity to put the kitchen together, which a great experience for kids. Kind of nerve-wracking for the teacher because it's one of those things you can't just go tell them to do it and they make a miscue and you're looking at that all the time, and if they put a hole in a cabinet or something. So but no, they did a nice job. We got the cabinets and the countertop, and I believe that all come through Infinity. Okay, so I mean, unfortunately, we worked pretty closely with them as well, and questions, I mean, it's easy to call and inquire about things if you have questions concerning it, and we had plenty of them. And now we're just also in the process of trying to do some of the little things. We're over here the last couple of days just putting up some of the baseboard. We repainted. Amy picked out the color, and the kids have painted a lot of the baseboard, and we're still in that process of wrapping that up. And it's been fun. It's nice that we fit things in. I know Amy talked about the windows, and I told her I'd love to try and get at least one in this spring yet, so we know the routine of what's expected when these. So I mean, hopefully that works out for us, that we can just keep progressing on it.
And the windows have all been purchased. They're all in the back. Here.
I was just going to add, and maybe Mr. Gaylor, Mr. Heiner, you might want to add into to some of this conversation. So originally the remodel of this space was part of our latest referendum, and when that did not pass, we had to think again outside the box, and utilizing it. The building and trades was great for empowering our students. Amy and I were talking earlier today just about the fact that these students now get to do a project that they drive by every day, and they know the students that it impacts, they know the program and what it's about, and they have they're personally vested in this space in a way that they certainly wouldn't have been otherwise. But there's a lot of folks that are personally invested, because we had conversations with contractors and businesses, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but savings too. Originally, you're probably talking with having Bob and the students do. You're talking about a third of the cost. And we were able to have some pretty significant savings with the commitment of our students and Mr. Thorson to this project. So that's a significant benefit as well, not just the experience of doing it, but cost savings from the district standpoint. And like we talked about before, a lot of community partners too.
So, sort of, I guess, Mr. Hunter and I kind of worked behind the scenes with everybody directly as well to do sort of a general contracting for this. That we worked with some companies on the original design, and I'm glad that Amy has an eye for tying things together, because it probably would look different if I would have picked out the color and it'd be all mismatched. She was empowered, and then also did a great job of leading us through that process about what does the space need to look like, and what sort of functions need to be in here. And then we put the pencil to paper and worked with Sally and Rob to make sure that it was on track for what we could do in certain phases. And I know she's talked about those phases, and I think that's important to recognize, is that we want this to look like a home from the outside and in the inside, and we want those opportunities that are site-based and then multi-use as well. And so a lot of thought has gone into that. Mr. Heiner, if you've ever worked with contractors, sometimes it's not always at the same time that you'd envision, and he spent a lot of hours, coordinating, and Bob with all of his construction experience. I don't think that you could imagine a better team coming together and making this happen for kids.
One of the most challenging aspects about a year ago was when COVID hit. We had a giant trench running right through the middle, and there was a lot of uncertainty. We were already planning ahead and collaborating with Bob's classes about cabinetry, believe it or not, and estimating, well, once the flooring goes in, we might be able to start on that as early as in the spring and maybe get some windows up, and we were looking forward to that. We also had a promise of a lake cabin, which we're in the process of building. We have a commitment to fulfill that by May, and so some of you are probably wondering, well, why could you only get one window? And that's the major part of that reason, is to fulfill that obligation. But In terms of collaborating with contractors, that was an enormous challenge because the demand is so high right now. And so it seems simple enough to get an electrician to come over at the blink of an eye, and I learned it is not. I also want to thank Dave Hillerud. He was a blessing throughout this whole piece in Hillerud Construction, because there were many times we had questions about countertop height, lighting, whether or not we could actually move a wall. You know, it would seem logical for residential, but when you're now in a commercial or in a school setting, there's different rules at play. So learning that along the way, you know, they were very beneficial to us, and grateful that they were on board with it. So.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because there are certain things that our program could not do. You know, we needed contractors, and some things we could do to a certain point, and then they'd have to finish, or they had to do to a certain point that we could finish. And so there were still expenses that way, and I'm also glad Mr. Heiner brought up the lake home. At some point we'll go out and we'll do a tour of the CTC, and that'll be a program and a project that we look at. But one thing to keep in mind, you know, I talked about savings, you know, the savings that were saved, or the dollars that were saved by having CTC build this program. They also are a self-sustaining program. They need projects like their sheds, the lake homes, those kinds of things to continue to purchase materials so they can, you know, have a sustainable program. So they did a great job here, but those were lost opportunities in their own programs to keep that program sustained. So I think it's an important piece to keep in mind too.
And Amy and Julie were in here over the summer. Anything that could be done to make sure we started the school year here, they did, and kept us on point, and so great job to everybody.
And I will say, because of this, we were able to be full-time, face-to-face from the first day, which just was wonderful for us.
I had a thought about, I love the home feel, I love the effort to do that more and more. And down the road, maybe, since you have a tiny bit of a yard out there, maybe some flower planting or window boxes for the flowers, that might be a nice skill for them, and it would look so charming and add to that home feel.
Sure. And I said that there's going to be a door over there where the window is, and there is in the plan also for a little bit of a patio back there.
Oh, great.
And we do have 2 picnic tables over on the side.
I saw that, yeah.
That Mr. Gaylor found for us, I think. CTC students made those, I assume.
Yeah, we find plenty of projects for both.
Yeah, there's never a lack of projects in that district.
Thank you, Amy. I mean, this program is a real asset. Tell them they did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Stunning.